Hi, this is Brad Wood. In my last video, I gave you guys an introduction to the new ColdFusion track on exercism.io. Today, I'm going to show you how you can help contribute to the platform by adding new exercises to the ColdFusion track so other people can take them. This is pretty easy and actually pretty fun. It's kind of like just doing the exercises yourself, except you're just the first person. So, a couple prerequisites. I'm assuming you have a GitHub account, you have a Git CLI or client of some kind of installed, and you have some basic idea of what a pull request is. If those last three things confuse you, hit me up on Slack and I'll be more than happy to help you out. There's two GitHub repositories that you need to fork and clone locally to be able to do this. The first of which is called Problem Specifications, and it's in the Exercism organization. I'll put a link in the description. This has the definition of all of the exercises that any of the languages have implemented on the Exercism site. There's an exercises folder inside of this, and it has the information for all these exercises. So for instance, if we look at Hello World, you can see it has some markdown files that have the basic verbiage on the exercises, and it also has a JSON file for each exercise, which is how we generate those unit tests automatically for you. The second repository you need to clone after forking is the ColdFusion repository in the Exercism organization, and this is where the ColdFusion implementation of these exercises exists. Go ahead and star this repository while you're at it. I have both of these forked already, and there's only one requirement. These need to be cloned in folders that are side by side on your hard drive. So clone these to the same location because the CommandBox task runner that scaffolds out new exercises needs to be able to find the JSON files over here in the problem specifications folder via relative path. So on the Exercism website, if we go to Languages and choose ColdFusion, you can see a list of the exercises that are already implemented on the Available Exercises tab. Hopefully you've already been working through a few of these, experimenting with them. And if you click on the Unimplemented exercises, you'll see a list of exercises ready and waiting to be added in. You might want to do a quick check on the ColdFusion repository and just make sure there's no open pull requests before you start anything. That way you don't implement something that someone else is already working on right now. And this one looks to be a fairly straightforward one. This one here is called word count. So we can click on the description to see what it's about. Give it a phrase, count the occurrences of each word in that phrase. So for example, input, ollie, ollie, income, free. Ollie existed twice, income and free all existed once. So this seems like a pretty straightforward exercise. Here we can see the test data. Here's the JSON file that defines all the possible inputs and outputs. So it looks like we're passing in sentences and we're expecting to get a struct back with the keys representing the words and then the count of those words. All in all, pretty straightforward. So once you have those GitHub repositories cloned, let's jump into our command line to scaffold some stuff out. Real quick, we will need to grab the slug for the exercise. You can usually find that here in the URL. In this case, for word count, is word-count. The folder the exercise lives in this problem specifications repository is the slug for that exercise. So here in CommandBox, I'm sitting at the root folder of the ColdFusion GitHub repository that I have cloned. We're going to change into a folder called Tasks, and this has some CommandBox task runners that we use to do some things like scaffold out new exercises. So let's do task run scaffold exercise. It's going to ask us a couple questions. What is the slug name? So word-count. And then the difficulty, if you don't know what the difficulty is, you can just leave this set to 1. We can change it later. And there you go. We just scaffolded out the word count exercise. So now what we need to do is clean it up so it's ready for students to take it, and then we need to actually implement our own reference solution before it can be merged. So the output of this tells us where it created the exercise. It's inside of the ColdFusion repository in a folder called exercises, then a folder called word count. We need to be putting our solution into the solution.cfc, and then here's that test file. Let's take a quick look at these folders to see what we created. Exercises, word count. Here's the exercise here. There's a folder, there's 3 things in this folder that the students will never see. The first is the .meta directory, and the second is these 2 files that have the word solution in them. These are behind the scenes things that help us set up the exercise, but they don't get delivered to students when they run exercism fetch. So in the meta directory, there's a hints.markdown file. If there's any helpful ColdFusion specific information you want to include about this exercise that's not in the generic description, go ahead and add GitHub flavored markdown to this file, and that'll get pulled in automatically. Maybe you want to direct them towards some specific ColdFusion functions that might come in handy, anything of that nature. The word count CFC, we want to open that up and make sure this is ready for the student to implement. We want to open up solution.cfc. This is where we put our reference solution that needs to work. And then I'll show you what's in the solution test real quick. We don't need to modify this. I'll just show it to you. This just extends our default word count test, and it overrides the CFC that's being created that we're testing against. Pretty straightforward. And then finally, let's open up our word count test. This is the test box test suite that we're going to be making pass. And this is what was generated out of that JSON file. Pretty handy. Saves you some work. Okay, so it looks like we're calling a method called countWords based on how these tests are set up. So let's go ahead and replace stub method name with countWords. And then it looks like each of these we're passing in a parameter called input that has the string we're parsing. So let's go ahead and add this default input in here. Okay, so this wordCount.cfc is now ready for the students to put in their implementation, and we're done with this file. Just want to make sure we had that ready to go for them. So let's go ahead and paste that same method stub into our reference solution. Now, back on our command line, let's jump into the folder where this exercise lives. So we're going to back out of that tasks folder, and we're going to go into exercises and then word count. Obviously, you will be replacing every time I say word count with the actual slug of whatever exercise it is that you're implementing. So this test runner CFC is what the students run to test their solution. But if we do task runner, we can add a special flag called :solution, and that will run the test runner against our solution CFC. All right, of course, it's all failing as expected, right? Very angry, much red. We can also add that same watcher flag, :watcher, and that'll start up a test watcher, and that means we can just keep editing our reference solution until all that red turns to green. In the meantime, it'll just be Christmas. Okay, we're good to go. Let's get this baby implemented, and that'll basically be it. So, count words. So we're taking in our input variable. I think we need to break this sentence up on spaces probably to get an array of words, and then we can loop over it and reduce that array down to a single struct that has our counts. So we're good. We have now scaffolded out the files for the exercise. We've created a reference solution that passes the test, and this is important because when we submit a pull request, there's a Travis job that's going to run, and it's going to check to make sure your reference solution passes. If it fails, then we ain't going to merge the pull request. All right. So let's go ahead and kill our task runner down here. Let's run on a unit test, and let's take a look at our get client. So this is what we have ready to commit. Config.json is a file that keeps a list of all of the possible exercises that have been implemented. The order of the exercises in this file is the order they show up on the website. And very simply, it's our difficulty, the slug, unique identifier, and then a list of topics. So this JSON file is fine. Everything else is inside of the word count folder. So there's our solution reference. And then here's the CFC the users will implement. So this is all good to go. This is working. This is ready to be submitted to the website. So we're going to create a branch. I like to just name the branch after the slug of the exercise I'm creating. So I'll create a new branch off of master. I'm going to commit here, new exercise. Make sure that if you have a fork of this repository that you have merged in the latest commits on the upstream remote. Otherwise, will have problems merging your requests if you're not up to date. And also, don't ever commit anything directly to your forked master branch, or you're going to end up with conflicts. Always add your changes into a branch, and then submit your pull request from your branch. When you're done, you can delete your branch, and you can merge into master from your upstream. So I'm going to go ahead and publish my new branch. I'm publishing this to my fork of the repository. I guess I probably should have committed that first. Oh well, it doesn't matter. Okay, I've committed the exercise to the branch, synchronizing that. GitHub for Desktop is pretty cool. It lets me create pull requests right from here. So I'm creating the pull request into exorcism master, and name the pull request word count. We'll send that pull request, and now we can view this on GitHub. So this exercise is ready to go. If you give it a few minutes, you'll see that Travis CI has kicked in, and it's going to run some unit tests. It's actually going to run all of the unit tests against all the reference solutions in the entire repository, and it's going to make sure everything is kosher. We can come over to Travis, and we can actually watch that happen. It's kind of fun just to sit here and watch the output stream in the Travis CI website. Okay, I skipped ahead a couple minutes here to save you some of the boring part of the Travis build. Here we can see the Travis build is finished, and it has passed. So if this happens, this means that in theory, your pull request is good to go. And if we refresh the pull request screen, it should show with all sorts of green here. So this is all there is to it to get your exercises added onto the site. So check out the available exercises. Look pretty fun. Scaffold them out from the CLI tooling. Get that reference solution implemented, make sure the tests pass, and then commit it to a branch and submit me a pull request. Again, once we merge these in, then you'll want to fetch your upstream remote, and then as long as your master branch on your fork is still clean, when you merge it in, you should do a fast forward merge, which means that you'll have a nice clean merge and you won't have any extra commits on your master branch. And then since you're committing each of your exercises to a branch, you can even be submitting more than one at a time. Alright, so that's it. A few moving pieces, but after you do a couple of them, it gets pretty straightforward. So please hit me up if you have any questions or you need any help getting these things implemented. But if people start jumping on these and implementing some exercises, then we'll be able to show up some of these other languages. You can see some of these languages only have maybe 30 or 40, 50 problems implemented. C# has like 109. Those guys are overachievers. Quite a few of them have almost 100. So ColdFusion has some catching up to do, but I think this is pretty fun. And if everybody from the community kind of jumps on it, we'll be able to bump up this number pretty quick. All right, that's all for now, guys, and have a great day.